nurse with many years' experience of clinical leadership across a range of care settings and is a champion in that leadership for delivery of high quality, accessible palliative care. She works freelance with several organisations in the UK, including St Christopher's Hospice, where she has a role as a senior nurse advisor. We will hear more about this today and the Global Palliative Care Nursing Network. She co-leads that. And also she's an accredited coach and mentor and enjoys collaborating with colleagues to improve end-of-life care and strengthening the voice of nursing. So really sits beautifully here today. So Marie, without any further ado, I'll hand over to you for now, and yeah, off we go.
Thank you, Jo. And I'm on behalf, just so delighted for meeting with Julie and Cynthia initially to hear about your amazing new initiative here at the forum. It's such exciting times, and I'm delighted to be on and honoured to be joining you today. So we're going to have a whistle stop, really dip our toes in the water in this subject, this huge subject about nursing, and to get us excited about this wonderful profession that we all belong to. And I hope to really connect with those values that you hold. They're out front in your practice every day, but sometimes they get a bit silent, and we can lose a bit of confidence that actually we have them. So I'm hoping that as we talk together today, that's going to really sharpen your lens and to help you find that backbone that you know is there to be able to assert what you think people will need as they are finding the end of life needs to be met. But so I'm going to start with just sharing my slide screen so that we can just check that first, if that's okay. How is that? Is that okay? You can see that.
All good. Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you. And we decided to call this session, how do we shape care with our authority, our expert insight, and our compassion? So over the next 40 minutes or so, we're going to be thinking about what is the contribution of nurses? What are we here on this call today called to do? And what do you do every day in your role? What does it mean to reclaim the voice of palliative nursing? And importantly, why does it matter? And then we'll give a few minutes to think about, well, what can we do to strengthen it in terms of your sphere of influence right now? So we have Zara, who's going to be our administrator and get us going into our breakout rooms now. But what I'd love to do is, this is the first time that you've all met in some shape or form. Zara's going to invite you to join a breakout group of 3. And I love you to think about this question just amongst yourselves, introduce yourselves, and just for 5 minutes, give it some thought to what do you believe the people you care for value about nurses? Thank you, Zara. And can I ask you just to write down those thoughts and have some time to chat amongst yourselves about that. Great, you're all going in. That's fantastic. If you have any trouble joining, please let Zara know. Thank you, Zara. That's brilliant. I'll stop share for a minute. There we go. Old faces they hadn't seen for a while. Any nice surprises or from old colleagues? Anybody meet new colleagues? Yeah, great. Sinead,
Yes.
who did you meet?
I met Esther, Dee, and Katrina, and they're all new to me because I'm new to this forum. So,
Oh, fantastic. Oh, that's
yeah,
fantastic. Well,
thanks.
welcome to your new colleagues.
Thank you.
And it's just a lovely way just to kind of orientate to what we're all here. But in terms of not the details, but how easy was it to find to kind of answer that question in terms of appreciate what people do value about nurses? Did it come quite easily to you? Anybody want to jump onto that one? Nuala, how did you find it? Were you chatting to colleagues in a breakout group?
Yeah, I think it came quite naturally, but then I think that as nurses, we value ourselves as well. So we're trying, but yeah, it came quite naturally, I suppose, when we
Right.
think about what we want to give to the patient as well and what we hope they value in us.
Absolutely, absolutely right. Having that confidence to actually own that space. That's absolutely right. Sometimes though, it's just lovely to hear other people recognizing that as well amongst ourselves. We can build our vocabulary around it and remind ourselves. So I just want to orientate us so we have a shared understanding and just to orientate us really to the work that we do. And I want to particularly focus on the aims of palliative care because they are, as you know, we do it, we know what we do, it's in your bones, you're competent, you're highly experienced, it's easy in terms of you have ease with it, but it can be hugely demanding at times. We are dealing with death and dying, we're dealing with distressing symptoms, we are trying to care for the whole person and integrating the psychological and the spiritual aspects of patients' care as well, and also and supporting the whole family around it. So it is something that it can be very demanding as an offer that we're putting out there, and also thinking about the context in which we want to try and offer that care. Society has a fear of death, always has. It's not new in many ways, but it's dressed up in different ways. And as much as we are trying to advance care planning and future planning, there is that real humans in our psyche that death has not something that we are particularly leaning into, and that is something that I know lots of good work being done around that. Individuals want more desire for agency. Assisted dying is certainly becoming more established practice across the globe, and people want to have choice. But there's also the uncertainty of contemporary dying with the health system under pressure. Um, you know, uh, with more technology, with how treatment modalities can happen, there isn't that typical trajectory that we can often sense that we could journey with the patient. So we are all learning about what the prognostic indicators will be in certain conditions because of the advances of practice. So, and ultimately, this quote, end of life is ultimately a profoundly destabilizing experience, regardless of care context. And when death goes well, it is the most amazing experience. When my mother died last year, she had the most amazing dying experience at home. But for the people who are, it's a new phenomenon for them. They are encountering death maybe later, not so much in the home. There's a lot of support that is required for that. However, I suggest that, too often today, nursing, our work is overly transactional. We are task driven and data driven, looking at, privileging, the biomedical model and knowledge, you know, really kind of not having so much the language of that personhood. It gets lost. And also we are all, as we said, under pressure with our constraints of economies and policy change. All these things influence how we approach our work. And I think even organizations, where is the voice of the nurse in setting up competencies? So many competencies I have seen are driven by organizations rather than our professional philosophy. It's what does the job need to get done rather than how, as a nurse, can this person offer their professional offer to our services and to the person. there's a bit of a disparity there. And if we don't attend to ourselves in our professional authority, it leads to moral injury at personal and professional level. And I think we saw a lot of that certainly during COVID. And I see it very much here in the UK, where roles are eroded, they're extended, they're degraded without any critical review. They've stopped funding in the UK. They've frozen spaces here in the UK this week in relation to university places. We have to fight for everything so much for our value often to be, to be appreciated. And nurses we all do want to be assertive, but sometimes it gets too hard. We become detached and we become silent. And if nurses are silent, those the most vulnerable in our society definitely suffer. So, we are the canary in the coal mine in terms of care offer. And if nurses are vibrant and strong and able to assert their authority and their practice, then society certainly benefits. So with all that backdrop, we are required to attend to the suffering of others. And that has a demand upon us, but it does require skills, expertise, and creativity. And it demands our presence to witness the person as they are. And sometimes that can be very difficult to see the suffering of others and to hold that space. But in our skills and in our ethos, that's what we are wanting to do for that person. And ultimately, the role of the nurse, I suggested that we never abandon the person. We accompany them right to the end. As ceilings of care are reached, other colleagues will rightly walk away. Physiotherapists, social workers, occupational therapists, counsellors, maybe even, and even the doctor at some point, rightly so, because we are now in a position to be the best person to accompany that person. And we stay until and beyond the end of their lives and to support those who are left behind. A quote by Dr. David Balint says, the clinician is the instrument of care. And that's where I think, as much as we have the technological knowledge and the advances, ultimately nursing is about us showing up. Good palliative care is that personhood, connecting with the person. And Dame Cicely Saunders says, suffering is only intolerable when no one cares. And I think that's a really quite a profound statement from her experience. So what enables us to stay in this space, in this context, and to deliver this care? I think there are many things, of course, but I would just, for today, I'd like to focus on these three pillars: professional authority, the expertise and insight that we have as nurses, and the approach that we have, which is that compassion person care. And I'm offering these three definitions to see if they speak to you as a way of recognizing, yes, I can step into this space. Professional authority is the recognized and legitimate power or influence that a professional holds by virtue of their expertise, their role, their experience, and ethical code and conduct, which enables them to make decisions, guide practice, and shape outcomes within their field. So we can stand and say, in my professional opinion, this is what I think needs to happen. The insight and expertise, this is where we have the advanced knowledge, skills, and judgment acquired through education, training, and experience that enables a person to perform competently and effectively within a specific profession. And I have a nurse consultant colleague her mantra is, I am an expert. I am the expert in this arena. And she really unapologetically steps into that space because that is her truth. And it's very often, that's not something that we can feel confident to say maybe out in us. We might know ourselves, but to be able to say that to our colleagues, she is a nurse consultant and she will say, I am part of the consultant body and I am an expert in this field. When she sees families, colleagues, patients, she really owns that space. She trusts her professional authority and she knows she has the competence and the wisdom to enact it. And then it's that lens of that compassionate person care, which respects and responds to the individual needs and supports people. And that's where we advocate and we ensure the voice of those I care for are heard. So that huge advocacy that is part of our role. But we are a troubled profession from our identity for sure. And I've done a fair bit of thinking about professional identity, and I do some other work on it. But basically, Peggy Chin is a nursing theorist from the States, still alive, and you can find her on LinkedIn. But she says nurses are thirsting for meaningful practice and one that is based on nursing values and knowledge. And it's saying, what is missing in healthcare is that nurses have, what can nurses provide when practiced from a disciplinary perspective rather than an organizational requirement? Where we get where our whole identity is kind of loosened and we don't quite know what we stand for, what is within our boundary, what is outside our boundary. And we become this amorphous body of doing everything all the time, 24/7, and not really be feeling one in itself, that is a huge skill and a required stuff, but we don't own it. We say, oh, I'm just doing something. I'm just chatting to a patient, rather than owning the importance of that. And the other great nursing theorist, which many of you will know, is Patricia Benner. I remember buying her book, 20, 30 years ago, 25 years ago anyway. And it just spoke to me. I thought, gosh, this is exactly what nursing, what is nursing? What is going on behind the curtains? And she says, and she really encouraged us. And she says, nurses will not become more powerful or gain more status by ignoring their unique contributions simply because they are not easily replicated, standardized, or interpreted. So if you want to read more about it, I would really encourage you to look at her work. It really explains what goes on in nursing and how we can then articulate that and value it and share it with others. The other great advocate we have is Dr. Tedros from the WHO. And he suggests that nurses are the backbone of any healthcare system. And I remember I was speaking to, last year, I did a masterclass in India. We had a global group of nurses. And I said, how many of you believe this statement? And the hands went up and we were saying, yeah, that's absolutely right. And I said, how many of you individually feel that you are the backbone? And there was a silence. We know our worth, but we can't always express it. Our environments, our culture, our opportunities, they don't always allow us to step into that authority. And so we do have advocates out there who understand the value of nursing. And the State of the Nursing report has just been released, I think, 2 weeks ago from the International Council of Nurses, which talks about the whole value of nursing workforce. Nothing new to you, nothing new to me. But it's still just in a report. The policies in the UK are shocking for nurses, absolutely shocking. So I don't feel it as a nurse in the UK whatsoever. And in many countries around the world, nurses are not feeling like we are the backbone. So we need to be able to find ways to be able to articulate that and to really make our case. And one way we do that is that we show our outcomes, by outcomes. This is the impact that nurses have when we are caring for people. And this is a piece of work that Heather Richardson and I did 3 years ago. We looked at the research and we developed a model of nursing to really help nurses to conceptualize, really, for those who wanted it. Well, how do I define nursing? What do we do? And how can I explain it to other people what we do? And we looked at the outcomes in the research and in our own particular study at St. Christopher's. And you may recognize these statements. The I statement is very much used in other cares like dementia. This is what we found people are saying when they get the care from nurses in terms of the impact they're having. They can say, I understand what is happening. I can still enjoy life. You know me as a person. I feel safe. And I feel involved and know I have a valuable contribution to play in shaping my future. And I feel confident to participate. And then I map these against our CQC regulations that we have here in palliative care in the UK. And and also, and again, the Lantern model. And it really shows that these outcomes are very much evidenced and can be evidenced in the data that we pick up from and the stories that we pick up and we can capture in the service that we give. And it's a way that we can then use it to commission and to advise and to show that we do have a very tangible outcome for those that we care about. And, at the beginning, I said, what is the unique contribution of nurses to those? And when we did our work, looking at the research and speaking to our colleagues in various arena, there's many things we do, but these are the ones that we felt were really central to kind of, what we felt were unique to nursing. And I'd love you to, for us to have a bit of a conversation about it and see whether this speaks to you. There are many others, I've no doubt, but just maybe let's just have a chat about, a thought about these, is that what we believe is absolutely unapologetically our role. And I think the first thing is that we do have that authentic connection. We do have that rapport with the family, and we build that over time because we are in that journey with them often. And sometimes, the most powerful piece of nursing that I've experienced was with a tissue viability nurse who came to see my father in acute hospital for half an hour. And I'm going back 15 years now. I wanted to get him home to die. Her name was Bev. It was a busy acute ward. And within 30 minutes, she had made a connection with my father like nobody else had made since all his time in that hospital. She had a way of, she came straight in behind the curtains. She introduced herself to me and the nurse who was looking after my father. And she went straight to my dad. And you'll recognize this as I'm saying it, because I suspect you do as well. She knelt by his head and she said, "Tell me, Pat, how are things? You're having a hard time." And he couldn't lift his head off the pillow. But the two of them had the conversation about his fecal incontinence, which was just relentless at that time. And they made a plan. And then she came back and she said, "I'm going to tell now Marie and Phil what I'm going to do." And at the end, with my father and the four of us, we had a plan of care. So as much as we often do have time, as thank goodness with those that we do care for, I think we all know that we can create those authentic connections in a moment. And that is the power and the beauty, I think, of what we can offer people, making them feel safe and visible. And then we have that sense of coordination for other colleagues. So we are the architects of care. We listen to the family, the person, context. We know who's in our toolkit back in our team to say who else could help us, who else could help us create the care that this person needs. We're also very much, using those incisive skills of assessment and clinical skills. We are watching the dynamics of change and responding to that, and therefore thinking ahead and thinking, okay, Fred, let's see what will happen next. Really trying, we are hopefully able to anticipate in some degree how things may be. And then we move from that, that notion of coaching a patient to what matters to you, right through to full intimacy of care, that personal one-to-one care when people are most vulnerable and when their dignity is most at risk, and maintaining that dignity for them right to the end. And of course, then building those relationships with those around the family and the friends and supporting them. And then we offer care after death, of course, as well. So, yeah, lots in our jobs, basically, but such an amazing range of skills, knowledge, and expertise, and an approach that is required to do this very skilled work. And how does this show up in terms of day-to-day? We would suggest that, the principles of activities are, we think there are 5 core principles that nurses are doing in the moment all the time in some shape or form. They're connecting with the patient. They're getting to know them and what's important to them. You're constantly thinking about future planning. How can I help you? What else do you need, John? What's going to be important to you today? And coaching and caring, that they feel that they, that we can say to them, ask those questions. What matters to you? How do you want this care done? Help them re-own their decision making right through to, as I say, that personal one-to-one care at the end. And we accompany them here for as long as they need us. And happily, some people are discharged from our care. That's great. And then finally, we do say goodbye. And that is a big part of our endings. Good endings are very important. We try to then think about, distilling this down even further into the nurse, the role of the nurse, and wider in terms of what is palliative care. And Heather Richardson and I, we came up with the 5 principles that we think might be helpful to, again, just to find that touchstone of what it is we offer people. What is the expertise? What is person-centered care? And how can I enact it? I think starting at the bottom is that notion of being attentive and proactive, constantly scanning to what's going on. Nurses are doing it all the time. We personalize the care through our personhood approach, and we are inclusive. We understand that we are only a small part of that person's life. Their family and that person need to be encouraged and supported to give the care that they want. And also our colleagues, who else, as I said before, in our team, in our society, in the community, can help people at this time, really bringing normalizing death back into the community again. And if you're interested to know more, the Value of Death Lancet Commission is very powerful for talking about the value of death and how there are various models and examples of how different countries are trying to really allow death literacy back into our ether in supermarkets, in death cafes, all these kind of ways to help people to come to some peace about mortality. And being relational, absolutely hugely part of our role. There's no doubt about that. And then care for self, really important as well, that this work is demanding. It requires resilience, it requires self-knowledge, and it requires self-care. There's no doubt about it. So we are entitled to respect ourselves, respect each other for the care that we need also to be able to continue to do this work. Just like to, if I may, just to talk about person-centered care, stepping into that authority and the expertise, to introduce you to Esther, who is an amazing nurse in Uganda, a community nurse. And she sent this poem from this patient of hers, wrote a poem about her. And I think it just encapsulated so much what nurses do on day to day that is often not in a job description in this way. And we don't often find ways to articulate it as well as we could. And Stephen is a patient in the home, and he says, "You come. When I smell, you still come. When flies are all over my room, you still come. When the weather is bad and the roads are impassable, you still come. Even when there are COVID-19 travel restrictions, you still come. What kind of people are you, and what am I to you?" And it's a beautiful sense of that relationship that is built up in the moment with people that we have not met before, but we are journeying with them. And this wonderful quote from Professor Paul Gilbert, who has founded the Compassionate Foundation, all built on science and research, to talk about the humanity and the motivational system. He says, compassion is the courage to descend into the reality of human experience. And we know that. I'm not telling you anything new here. I'm just sharing with you, gosh, that's what we do, unfolding what we do. And it's just wonderful to be able to recognize in many ways. And there's a whole notion there about compassion for self, compassion for the other, and also to receive compassion. It's so important that we too can receive compassion. So Esther, I think, encapsulated that whole way that she initiated care. She knew her expertise, and she gave dignity back to this gentleman and this father, so that even though he was dying, he reclaimed his personhood. And she had no technical, it wasn't about, we know that. It's not about the technical machinery and stuff. It's that personhood that is so, so powerful. So I'd love to just talk a few minutes now about why, what's at stake in terms of why the opportunity to reclaim all this, and how can we strengthen nursing. And this is a quote from Sweets. It says, while celebrating nurses involved in population health and systems of care, like we do have the WHO, we have the ICM, we have nursing representation at board level, we have nursing representation at regional level. She suggests that the discourse around patients as unique and distinctive individuals seems to be losing ground. So the whole notion of seeing the person is at risk. So as palliative care nurses, and nurses generally, I would say, every opportunity we can to strengthen that value of seeing the person and to stay curious is fundamental. And for me, I think nursing is built on two pillars. It's the knowledge of the nature of the human health and illness experience, the human condition. The nurse, as much as we need the skills and the knowledge around disease, our focus is on, so what does that mean to that person in front of me? We've all done degrees and God knows what on pathophysiology and whatnot, and do rightly so, highly competent clinicians. But what we're interested in is, so what does this mean to you? And as a result of that, we apply therapeutic, healing, ethical, and relational nature of nursing. And that requires the art and science of the professional nurse, both together. And that's, it's that blend of, I see you, I see how this is impacting you. What can I bring from my skills, my knowledge, my colleagues, to enable you to have the life that that you want? It's so important. So I think I would say that, at every opportunity to be able to affirm and to use our influence and power is really, it's there. It's just trying to find if there's any space for it, really, to kind of where you think that might be for you and your colleagues, And I think a palliative care nurse is not just a title. We know that. It's a commitment to acting as a bridge between scientific knowledge and compassionate, humane care. And so I feel so important is that we safeguard our professional offer, and therefore we seek ways to kind of to kind of really make sure that people know what we are about, to educate the public, to educate our colleagues, to educate policymakers that nurses are advocates, educators, and validators of our skills, so that not in itself, we're not interested in our own entity for just existing as a professional body. We exist so that people's suffering is less, so that people have healthy lives, so that people can live the life that they need through our skills. That's what our purpose is, and we can do that. And that's what we want to do. If you'd like to read more about this approach, I think, or this sense of, what is professional identity and how is it showing up globally, you may, if you're on LinkedIn, look at Ali Thacker. He's a very interesting nurse. He's really writing in a whole new language. Betty Chin is a nurse. She founded nursology. She's one of the theorists who discovered. They're talking about nursology. It's back in the 80s, 90s. Well, more recently, but in terms of now, nursology is this. They're trying to really create nurses, and as I'm helping nurses to consolidate and conceptualize and own their professional identity and their offer. And Ali Thacker has done a lot of work on this. I have to say, when I read some of his papers, I understand about 30% of it. But I'm curious and I want to know more, and I want to understand what his thinking is and how I can use his thinking to help me to convey more and to help nurses to kind of think about their contribution, because I think it's so helpful to have new voices in this arena, and nurses at system leadership, that when you are in a position of authority, that we use it, that we appreciate that we have this power, and how then can it play out for us. So I would just love to just now invite you to go back into your breakout groups and say hello to other people. But just to reflect on what I've shared with you over the past 25 minutes or so, is there, what does it sound like to you? Is there one way that you could reclaim and use your voice this week? Is there something that's burning in you, thinking, no, I really want to do that, I'm going to try doing that? Or have you been silenced? Has things happened that you don't feel able to find your space, and or maybe you may want to talk about what you do as a community of professional nurses now going forward. You are a powerful group in your own right here today. What else could you take forward without permission? We don't need permission, by the way. Don't wait for others. We don't need permission. If you want to do something, you actually have a go at doing it, and get us all with you. So Jacinta, I'd love you to please, Zara, can you put us into breakout groups again for about 5 minutes, and then we'll just come back before I finish and just have a bit of a chat about where our thoughts are at, and how things could be for you, and see where we get to. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Thanks, Marie.
Love to know. Yeah, thank you. Any reflections that you'd like to just share with the group on anything, really? Just lovely to hear some voices as to what you were discussing.
Sorry, it's Linda here.
Hello, Linda.
Hiya, Marie. Thank you very much for the great presentation. I suppose what we've kind of thought about is recognising ourselves, the role that we have in palliative nursing. And I think sometimes we forget about that. And with that, recognising it's about self-care as well. And I suppose one of the things we kind of did touch upon is about, there's a national clinical lead programme in the national palliative care that's a vacant post at the moment. And it's probably recognising the importance of that role, which has been left probably for quite a few years, kind of unfilled. I'd say it's probably 3 years now since that post is unfilled.
Wow.
But the importance of it as well, and open it up to probably other. It's at the moment it's A&P aid-on levels, but probably opening up to CNM3s and that as well would be important.
Fantastic. Thank you, Linda. Fantastic. That's a great opportunity.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Mary, this is Fiona. We're in Laura Lane Children's Hospice. So we just did a few little comments, and we had a conversation there with Sandra from Northern Ireland, and we had with Lazarina. And we were just saying that while this is a great first step, having the forum for nurses back up and running. I've been involved with the Education and Research Forum. It was great to see the Nursing Forum back up and to see so many people on it. It is a great start. So it is always hard to it. But also, I suppose, to acknowledge here in Lorna, we work very close with our healthcare assistant colleagues, who are two in the room, and it's really, really important that we work as a team. And when we include nursing, we include them as well.
Absolutely.
And they definitely reflected on that. A lot of what you spoke about with patients, for us, it's with parents and grandparents.
Yes, of course.
So
lovely.
And I think they do an awful lot of navigating, because in the world of adults, people might quite often know somebody who has died. An adult who's died, maybe. Whereas with the children, they're always navigating that world with the parents who have no experience, have never met this before. So as one of them said, they're always been asked, what do other parents do?
Gosh, yeah.
So that kind of that thinking about that.
Do you know, Laurelyn, that would be a great session to do on this forum, to open, to kind of share. I live in a world, my profession, I live in a world of adults. And you're right, we're very dominant in the world of palliative care. And so I think your perspective would be very helpful, maybe to kind of stand in this box and do a presentation and help us with some more conversations around that, because it's for all of us, it'd be so interesting.
I think Jacinta might argue that I get my voice heard quite a lot.
Don't
Very
apologize.
valued,
That's fantastic. And I think you're right. I mean, when I talk about palliative care, the beauty of palliative care, it is multi-professional. That is our strength. And I will never apologize. You know, and healthcare assistants, they're the backbone of our teams. Wonderful individual. Absolutely, I agree with you, Laurelyn. I think where the lens I'm coming from today is there is a professional role that we, as a registration of nurses, is different. We have an unapologetic code of conduct that we work to. We have to act with integrity. We have to keep ourselves updated. And to be a true professional as well, in terms of what the research would say, is we need to network and we need to build our professional body. So those are what I was hoping for today, in terms of, we as the registration, as the registered nurse, regardless of whether you're in end of life, in a care home, or a specialist palliative care nurse, doesn't matter. We have such a powerful position as a professional body to really advise and instruct people. This is what nurses do. And that's what I'm hoping that we can spend some time on. That you can reflect a bit more on. Time is on the run. So I just want to, if I may, I'm going to hand back to Jo right now, but just finally, just want to share with you an invitation to join the Global Palliative Nursing Network. It's a really, we have a WhatsApp group now of 200 nurses on it. And we do have a pediatric palliative care subgroup, which is really active, Laurelyn and colleagues. So you may want to join that. But we have on July 2nd got our next meeting, which is looking at trauma-informed leadership for around nursing and what that means, and how do we care for ourselves, and how do we ensure that we can stay in this world of palliative care and thrive. But it's a wonderful community. We meet 4 times a year online. We have a newsletter. It's growing all the time. Got 80 countries now nurses join. So if you've got an interest to connect for anything, please get in touch with me. There's the link there, but if you put in Global Palliative Nursing into your browser, you will see the link. It's all free, and we would love you to join in any shape or form. So please, just take that way. And lovely. So that is me. I'm going to say thank you very much for letting me join you today. It's such an honor. And I'll hand now back to Jer. Thank you so much.
Lovely, Marie. Thank you. Some comments just, as well. I know the Laura Lynn colleagues have discussed theirs. The poem was very touching. A couple of comments just about palliative care is everyone's business, not just the specialist palliative care. It's lovely to remind ourselves of that, because we do have some colleagues from non-specialist palliative care here on with us today, and that's really important, and their voice matters too. And also a little bit around, we only get one chance to try and make a difference to both patients and families, and I think that's a sentiment that's echoed well. And again, just a mention from Zara there about researching and trying to rationalize what we want to study in isolation, but it's important not to lose the art of nursing whilst working in interdisciplinary care as well. So lots of things there as well. And Marie, some beautiful things, you mentioned today will sit with us. It's a reminder of recognition of what we do as nurses. I took down writing furiously about the 3 pillars and, looking at the lantern model. Looking at the 5 core principles of palliative nursing, I'm sure we all can agree is that, and a beautiful reflection of what we can do as nurses for ourselves, but also for our patients and their families. So I think really just to sum up for today, and just to remind everyone, there is a link here in the chat just for our nursing forum as well, and I'll talk about that in a second, but most importantly, our evaluation. If you wouldn't mind taking the last couple of minutes of our today's webinar just to complete that. And I suppose today what is recognition is our strength in this nursing forum for palliative care nurses is in our unity. And I think that's coming through in such a really clear message for us today. Of course, I'm going to ask you to be more involved and as an active member of the Nursing Forum. We've had some challenges moving forward in recent times with our steering group numbers. However, today is an example of what we can achieve together. And I encourage our current IAPC nursing members online, if you're here and you want to actively engage with the forum, please do. If you're not a current IAPC member and you would like to consider coming on board, our aim really is to engage nurses with an interest in palliative care, to get involved with us in the forum and represent many diverse areas of nursing as possible here in Ireland. So I've popped in the link there in the chat, but if you just go to the IAPC website, you'll see the nursing forum section, scroll down to the end and you can express some interest there. We are working away in the background. In keeping with our mission and our vision, educational opportunities are key. So today is representative of that, as I've already mentioned. I want to thank, a special thanks to CEO Jacinta Cuthbert for supporting us with a recent application for funding. We'll see how that goes later on in the year, but we wait to hear this outcome. We'll continue to work and uphold our mission and values during that time and support members where we can. I want to thank you all for your attendance today, participation and engagement. It's lovely in the breakout rooms. I know we were tasked with different things to do and we often panic, but it was lovely to kind of meet so many of you. Thank you so much, Marie, and the IAPC as well for you're such a wonderful speaker, facilitator, motivator, and it's lovely to bring us back to, what makes us great as nurses, but also linking it to palliative care. The future of palliative nursing is bright, and I look forward to seeing our nursing forum continue to grow and develop. And I won't say any more, but I think I've said enough. I hope to see more of you in the coming months, maybe on joining the forum. Thank you.